Well, thanks so much for joining today. I am going to hold off on starting for just a couple minutes here to let people have a chance to join, and then we can get started. So sit tight. All right, we can go ahead and dive in. It looks like some more people are starting to fill in here. So thanks so much for everyone for attending today. I know it's a busy time of year for everyone, and I know some folks aren't able to join, so we'll also be recording this and sending it out afterwards for anyone who's not able to attend live. But getting started, my name is Dan Pratt. I am part of the partnerships team here at Labster as regional director in New England. And we're actually partnering with UMass Amherst to give anyone who's interested a chance to pilot Labster access for their courses starting this spring semester. I'm assuming we'll be here for about 20 or 30 minutes today. Shouldn't take too long to run through some things. And then I can save any time left at the end for any questions. So just to set a quick agenda of what we'll be covering today, just to make sure we stay on track. After a quick introduction to Labster, I'm going to cover the challenges that we help solve before diving into the overview of the platform. And then I'm planning on following that up with some data, how to get involved, and as I mentioned before, we can use any remaining time at the end for Q&A. If you do have any questions, feel free to pop them in the questions tab of the webinar, and I will be sure to cover those all at the end. So just a quick introduction to myself. As I mentioned, I'm the regional director in New England here at Labster. I've been with Labster for about 8 months now. And in that time, I've been working with a lot of local schools. We already have a lot of courses in the UMass system using Labster over at Lowell and Boston, and then several other schools, including Endicott, Tufts, New Haven, UConn, the SUNY system, just to name a few. Labster itself is a company based in Copenhagen, and our US headquarters is here in Boston, so not too far away from you guys. I've actually been down to campus before. We've been in Boston for about 2 years now. And we began as a research project at the University of Copenhagen. Our co-founder saw several challenges in teaching science to this generation of students, and that's really where we got started. So now we're in over 500 schools and have over 250,000 students using Labster right now. So to kick things off, I want to cover the 3 major challenges that we hear about as we speak to faculty administrators around the world when it comes to science courses. And these can also end up leading to other challenges as well. These three challenges are typically student engagement, student preparation, and effectiveness of delivering online science content. My students are disengaged and distracted. Faculty tell us that students are increasingly distracted and disengaged, seemingly more interested in what's happening on their phone than the lecture being delivered. There was actually a study in 2016 at the University of Nebraska that college students spend about 20% of their classroom time using digital devices for activities that aren't even related to class. And I personally think that's probably even a bit more. It's a hard one to study there. Second one, students arrive unprepared. I need to catch them up, get them set up for success, both while they're here and after they graduate. Faculty are also telling us that their students are unprepared. According to a recent report, more than 500,000 college students in the US are required to take remedial courses. And again, it's much more than that due to the reporting inconsistencies. And finally, from administrators, we're hearing that they know they should be migrating more STEM courses or homework online, but they don't know how to do it. This is validated from the findings of a study of 2,000 STEM courses recently, and it found that roughly 80% of these STEM courses still use conventional lectures as the primary instructional method. And these challenges, as I mentioned, can also lead to other issues like poor conceptual understanding, knowledge gaps, and that makes it really hard to teach to the middle, if you will. Make sure that everyone in the class is getting the most out of it and understanding the material. So I'm sure these all resonate with you in one way or the other. So now I'll share with you how we help solve these challenges. And the way that we address them is through the use of these gamified virtual labs. We incorporate real experimental data and algorithms so students can actually change variables, observe outcomes, even make mistakes, just like they would in the real lab, but in this virtual environment. So I'm going to run through a quick video now highlighting some of the details, and then we can dive a little deeper afterwards. So right now, the platform contains over 110 simulations. Each is this gamified case study, typically covering 1 to 2 lectures, 1 lab session worth of material, taking students about 45 minutes to complete on average. And the way that we're building these is around a storyline, so almost like a video game, if you think of it. So we're linking those abstract theory and techniques covered to a real-world application for the students. Whether it be solving a crime, helping a local basketball team, or even learning about their diets, they're going to learn why this is important to their real lives. As the students are playing through, they're also required to complete every step that they would in a real lab. So in doing so, they'd also learn all lab protocol and techniques. This is everything from basic safety protocols like putting on a lab coat to learning how to use the different tools and machines. Instead of just being that simple digitized version of the real lab, the platform actually allows for the students to learn in a way that's not possible in the real lab environment. We incorporate interactive cellular and molecular visualizations so students can learn what's actually happening, go inside cells, molecules, know that it's not just magic. Multiple choice questions throughout to keep them on track. And like I said, most importantly, the ability to really change those variables and make those mistakes. And at the end, each simulation is fully graded and the platform can integrate directly into your learning management system. So that way grades pull over and it makes it easy for everyone all around. So I know that was a lot of information in just a couple minutes there. We can dive deeper in a minute to really highlight some of those in more detail. But as I mentioned at the beginning there, we have over 110 simulations right now, and we can cover content for well over 16 courses spread across multiple disciplines. The best way to determine if it's a fit is to send over your syllabus so my education team can have a look at it and kind of do some course mapping for you. And we can cover that a little bit later towards the end. But for now, let's take a look at some of the content. I'm going to show you an example of one of the simulations in our biology package. And then following the webinar, you'll be hearing from me and I can recap how to use the platform, give you some faculty access so you can review the simulations on your own as well. So this is our faculty resource page. This is where everything Labster is and where you're going to be able to go in and play around as an evaluator. As you can see here, everything's kind of grouped by course. But when you're actually choosing which ones you want to use in your course, it's a la carte. So you can design your own custom package for whatever fits best for you. An example here, if you click on general biology, you can see down here, we have a lot of content that might fit in the course. I don't think anyone covers all of this, but there are some that are covered, in most general biology courses, and a lot that are supplemental that, different faculty throw in here and there if they think it's relevant information for the students. When it comes to content development, we're always developing new content. Our most recent package was rounding out this microbiology package here. We release about 5 to 10 simulations every 3 months or so. And upcoming, starting in February 1st, we're going to have actually a new organic package with a lot of new material there. But when it comes down to this page, the thing you're going to be able to do is look at any simulation that you want to. So we'll take cellular respiration, for example. It's covered in most intro bio courses. It's one of those core concepts that we see. So when you click in here, there's a lot of information that's going to be presented to you. You're going to be able to look at those quiz questions that we asked throughout with their answers. So you know what we're going to be asking the students, you know what they're going to be expected to answer. You can read through the theory as well, and everything that we have is from OpenStax textbooks. So everything is built around these OpenStax that are fully available, free online, so that way you have full insight to what we're building these simulations around, and students can also have access to this outside of Labster as well. Scrolling down, there's a lot more that you can look at here. You can look at any techniques, learning objectives, if there was a major collaborator, and really everything about the lab and what the students are going to be doing going through. When it comes to actually playing through the simulation, there's a couple ways that you as an evaluator are going to be able to do this. The first is playing through just like the students would. So this is controlling everything, changing your own variables, making your own mistakes, answering your questions. This is really how you get that full idea of what Labster is. We also have these video walkthroughs. As I said, they can take about 45 minutes on average to complete. So as you're looking through and evaluating, we actually have these videos of someone from our team playing through, getting the questions right. So that way you can, in a shorter amount of time, evaluate what the simulations look like. In the interest of time here, I'm going to run through this video walkthrough. But again, afterwards, I can set you up with your own access so you can actually play through by yourself. So getting started right here, there's a couple things I want to highlight just to start. This floating robot here called Dr. One is actually like a virtual lab assistant for the students. He's there to guide them through as they're going through the experiment, as they're going through the lab, make sure that they are, going to the correct table, for example, or following the correct procedure, kind of helping them guide through, staying on that mission that the kind of video game makes at the beginning, so they're following through. As they are playing, everything is kind of centered around this virtual iPad here called the Lab Pad. This is where the students are actually going to be answering those questions, where they're going to be looking through that theory from the OpenStax books, and where they're going to be looking at the pictures, videos, everything to help them. Again, they can track their mission here, and they can track their score and progress. Like a video game, they're going to want to know how they're doing and how far along they are, so that's all here for the students. As I mentioned, everything's built around that real-life scenario. So this one, for example, is helping a local basketball team. You talk to the captain, and he says that his point guard is really tired today, even though he got a good night's rest. The problem is he didn't join them for the big pasta dinner last night, so the coach referred us to help them figure out how what they eat affects their performance. In this example, this kind of sets up everything that they're going to be doing for the lab. You now know what you're going to be looking for and kind of how it relates to this real life example. So as you're here, you're talking, what they're going to do is they're actually going to give you some blood samples. And what you're going to do to start is you're going to take those blood samples back to the lab to get going on the experiment. So when you get back, as I said, you have to follow all the basic safety protocols as well. So the first thing you're going to want to do is find that locker, put on a lab coat. You're going to want to find that box of gloves, put on some gloves, and now you are ready to enter into the lab. When you get in there, you're going to have a chance to take a look around. The students don't have to get started right away, but Dr. One again is going to point them to the correct table to get started. So once they have a chance to kind of look around and go to the correct table, They're going to get there and they're going to kind of have everything in front of them that they're going to need to know. Those blood samples are right there, so they can begin working. As I mentioned a couple times, there are these multiple choice questions embedded throughout, and this is one example right here. So what happens is the students have the ability to click into that theory tab and actually try to read to find the correct answer and read through before just answering it right away. Once they click in, they read through, they find the right answer, then they're good to move on. If they didn't get that question right, it's going to automatically prompt them to view that theory, and it's going to shuffle the order of those questions for them. So that way, students can't just click A, B, C, D until they get the correct answer. It almost forces them to think critically and understand what they're doing before they can even move on with the experiment. So once you answer these questions, you're gonna start going through the experiment just like you would in a real wet lab. So here, you're gonna want to take the blood sample, you're gonna want to put it in the glucose meter, and it's going to tell you what it reads. It's going to graph on the screen, and it's going to start asking you questions around what you're looking at. Same thing goes with the lactic acid meter, and they'll go through, answer these questions, and start really understanding how they're going to help this team and what they need to come to for an answer at the end. So I'll skip ahead a little bit here. As you can see, there's a lot of different parts of the lab that are incorporated right here using the hollow table to look at some visualizations, learn what's actually going on. And jumping forward a little bit more, as I said, we have these interactive cellular molecular visualizations. A good example of that in the cellular respiration one is looking inside the mitochondrion at an actual visual of the electron transport chain. So the students are actually going to be teleported inside. It's going to look just like this, and they're going to be able to watch this animation. Again, kind of connecting the dots for the students. So it really, you can see things click so they know this is what happens on the outside, this is actually what's happening at the cellular level. So I'll allow the animation to play through for a quick minute here, just so you can get a quick example, and then we can move on afterwards. As you can see, the students can look around, look at every part, focus in on certain areas. And watch it, unlike you'd be able to do in the real lab. So this is one of the ways that we really help close those knowledge gaps, really help students understand what they're looking at. So I'll jump forward a little bit here. As you saw, there are some more questions that are asked throughout as well. And they'll continue playing through. The last thing that they're going to do in this lab is look at the oxygen level. So you can actually use the rat here, put in the microchip, set their own parameters, and go through and learn how to assess oxygen consumption. So then at the end here, it kind of recaps for the students everything that they learned. They learned how the energy they ate gets transformed during glycolysis, how the products of the Krebs cycle supply the electron transport chain with energy, and finally resulting in the production of ATP. And so now you're ready to tell the team what's happening. And now, as you can see, the students in this case got a perfect score, 99%. Once they hit continue, they're done with that lab. And then it's going to ask them 5 questions about how they felt around. So it actually has to do with the course impact. So that way you as the instructor can see how your students feel about using Labster as well. If they found it relevant, if they enjoyed it, if they're more confident going through, stuff like that. And again, everything automatically pulls over into your learning management system to make it easy for you to evaluate and see how the students are doing going through Labster. So that's just the one example there that I wanted to run through quickly. Again, I'll set you up with your own access afterwards. That way you can take a look for yourself and really play through the simulations. So jumping back into the slides here, the one question that I always get is how would we use a lab simulation? And there are a few reasons why folks would use the lab simulations that are listed here. By far the most popular is probably as that flipped classroom exercise. So assigning Labster as a homework assignment before the lecture. This gives the students the opportunity to explore the concepts, read the theory, practice the techniques before they get to class, which always results in more engaging, in-depth conversations as well as improved exam and retention scores. Another way is as that pre-lab exercise. So students complete this prior to a lab to again give the students an understanding of the techniques and concepts that they're going to cover in that week's experiment. So if the students, for example, spend 30 to 40 minutes going through an exercise similar to what they'll be doing in the actual lab, they will see a few benefits there. They're going to be familiar with the experiment, so it's going to save the instructor or TA time explaining what they're doing at the beginning of the lab. They're going to understand what to expect over the course of the experiment. They're going to get that conceptual understanding why this experiment is relevant in real life, which is especially helpful for maybe those non-major students. And they're going to have more self-confidence in their lab abilities. So this leads to less broken glassware, less likely to overuse and waste chemicals, and in the end, this can end up saving the department some money as well. The flip side to this is for those online courses. Nearly 1 in 4 students are taking at least one course online as of the beginning of this academic year. And I know many schools are looking to add online components to their courses so that they can accommodate those students wherever they are, offer a wider variety of courses, work with space constraints, allow the students to take courses year round and really stay on track to graduate. And I know this is something that UMass Amherst is looking to do as well with the University Without Walls, which is kind of how we got roped into this partnership here, kind of how it all started. But again, there's a lot of different ways that Labster can be used. Finally, the hybrid approach. This is, doing some wet lab experiments and doing some virtually. Typically, this is when you don't have the equipment or it's unsafe to run the experiment for whatever reason, or when students miss class. Being in New England, we saw just last week, we got a lot of snow, school was canceled, so weather cancellations, athletics, students that just can't make it for lab because of games, practice, whatever it might be, and more there. The last thing that I wanted to cover just at a high level here is the research behind Labster. And I can send this to anyone who's interested in looking further into it afterwards as well. But this was actually our first publication in Nature Biotechnology. And this showed the improvements in learning outcomes with the implementation of Labster. So here they took 2 groups of students and taught them the same exact material. One group using those traditional teaching methods and one group using Labster. The study showed a 76% higher increase in knowledge for the group that used Labster compared to that group that learned the same exact material in lecture. Taking it one step further, they also wanted to assess the impact of learning using Labster in combination with that traditional lecture. And the result here was 101% increase in learning outcomes compared to traditional teaching alone. So not only did the use of Labster demonstrate an ability to significantly increase the students' knowledge, but also in a retention test conducted 40 days later, they found that the students retained all knowledge gained as a result of the experiment as well. This next study was in 2016 with BMC Medicine. Here, they wanted to look at Labster's impact on the different knowledge levels when it comes to knowledge, motivation, and self-efficacy or confidence of students. The most significant impact here was for those low knowledge students, where Labster was actually able to decrease that knowledge gap by about 20%. Again, making it easier to teach to the middle and make sure that all the students are gaining relevant information and the relevant, necessary tools to move forward after they leave the course, whether it be in future classes or in their careers. We were also able to increase the students' motivation, self-efficacy, confidence across the board for all knowledge levels as well, as you can see there. So finally, how to be involved. It's actually pretty easy because we've already partnered with UMass Amherst. Just let us know. You'll see my contact information at the end. You'll be hearing from me. And we're also working with some of your colleagues who I'm sure have reached out to you as well. So let us know if you want to use Labster in your class at no cost to the students this spring as a pilot. That's something that we're working to stand up right now. And after letting me know, I can again set you up with access to the faculty resource page, and that way you can review all 110 plus simulations to choose which ones you want to use in your course. And to help with this, there are a few steps that we can take. So first is course mapping. I mentioned this a little bit towards the beginning of the presentation, and we've actually already done some course mapping for a few of your courses, and I'm happy to share how that looks after the main presentation. This is actually done by a team of educators on my side who can actually take a look at your syllabus and help align the content to what fits best, whether it be the learning objectives that you list in the syllabus, the different topics that you're covering, we can get that granular, or even the set of labs that the students are going to be doing. My team can take a look, show you what fits best, and that way you'll at least be guided when you're looking through that faculty resource page. Again, these are just suggested, and if there are things that you want to explore further, you can make the decisions based off the learning outcomes that might not be in your syllabus but are tied to the course, because there is no pre-populated simulation package. So again, we're going to work with you so that way you can choose the simulations that make the most impact in your course today. The final step is the LMS integration. As I said, grades can pull over. Full setup doesn't take more than 15 minutes per course, and students can use their own login credentials, so there's no need to remember another password. The good news here is that we're already working with you guys, so the LTI is already integrated, or will be integrated for you. So that way we'll be good to go for your courses when you're ready to try this out with the students in the spring. So that's really what I had to run through. I hope it gave you a good understanding, at least at a high level, of kind of who we are at Labster and how we're partnering with UMass Amherst to get this pilot stood up in the spring. I'm going to leave it open now to any questions. That way, I can answer them right here while we're live, or also my contact information is down there as well, so feel free to email me separately if there are no questions today. So let's see here. I'll pull up the question queue, and feel free to keep asking questions right now if there's some that come to mind. It looks like the first question here is around pricing, and that's a great question. So for the pilot, for you guys, for the students, it's going to be free to the instructors and students this spring. We're working with administration to figure out stuff on the high level, but that's the good news. So there's really no strings attached for you during this pilot period. In the future, it really depends on how many simulations you're going to want to use in your course, how many students, stuff like that. Typically, it ranges from $50 to $100 per student, with options for the school to pay, or most popularly, the students to pay themselves. All right, next question here is around ADA compliance. So we are ADA compliant. I'd be happy to send you the copy of our repat afterwards instead of spending a lot of time going through it right now. And then if you have any specific questions on that, feel free to let me know. All right, here's a new one that just popped up now. I run the digital media lab at UMass Amherst. We're building 2 new VR labs to support Labster and other initiatives. As a research associate professor of chemistry, I look forward to helping any way I can. We have 2 Lenovo Mirage headsets, 2 HTC Vive headsets, 1 Oculus Quest. Great, thanks for the information. So when it comes to VR, about a third of our simulations right now are VR compatible. So right now, the platform that we work with is Google Daydream. So if that's the software running behind, we're going to be able to work with it. The reason why we only work with Daydream right now is because Google actually helped us develop a lot of these VR simulations. So we're tied into a contract. But as I'm sure you've heard, Google is getting rid of the Daydream platform. So I don't have a timeline yet, but from everything that I've been hearing internally, it's pretty easy to flip a switch to be able to support those other headsets as well. All right, another question here about technical support, what it's like in its most robust state. That's a great question. So our technical support team is 100% US based. And all responses are within a 24-hour period, usually much faster than that. For simple issues, it's usually a very quick fix, again with that 24-hour period for the students. For some of the more complicated stuff, which we do not really see because everyone's using the same simulations, it can take a bit longer going to our product team. But in its most robust state, students will hear back within 24 hours to answer any technical issues. We also let them know which browsers to use and how to do some troubleshooting on their own if it's not working. There's a couple things that can be a little bit funky in the browsers that by just turning off one thing can make everything work again. All right. Leads to another question here. What are the specs for the students? Great question. So everything is 100% web-based. So students won't need to download anything. They're not going to download any plugins, anything like that. I'd actually pull up right here on our faculty resource page. These specs are going to be listed down on the bottom right here. These are basic specs for, even your most basic Chromebook. So we're really made to run with any laptop or computer as long as it's in an updated browser. As far as internet connectivity goes, we take about as much bandwidth as a 10-minute YouTube video to load. So typically the simulations will load up within a minute or two max. All right, so it looks like that's all for questions right here. Hopefully I was able to answer all of your questions there. I'll pause for another minute here just to see if there's any final questions. All right, so it looks like we're good for now. Again, feel free to send me an email with any questions that might pop up. My email is daniel.pratt, P-R-A-T-T-E @labster.com. I'm going to be sending you a follow-up as well, just to see what makes sense for next steps moving forward here. Oh, looks like another question just popped up here actually. What might a typical course map look like? That is a great question. Let me see if I can pull something up for you. So right here, we took an organic chemistry course that you guys are running. So this is actually at UMass Amherst, as well as a microbiology course. And this is typically what it looks like. My team will list out the lab topics or lecture topics, and they'll actually be able to see what maps over the best. So in this case, with the organic chemistry, as I said, we're releasing another set of simulations that I added in here personally at the bottom. So right now, this is kind of what fits with this course, but available in February, there are going to be some more courses available here as well. Moving down, the microbiology, again, this is the same thing. We look at those learning objectives and kind of map stuff over for you. Any notes of what it might cover. For example, microscopy covers bacterial cell structure. And also in the notes, there are some other ones that might fit over as well. This was a little bit of an older one, so I'm sure with our new microbiology package, a few more might fit in there now as well. Hopefully that answers your question. Again, if you wanted to send over a syllabus, feel free to do so, and I can have my team take a look at your specific course. All right. Any final questions? Perfect. Well, again, feel free to reach out if anything comes up. I thank you again for taking time, out of your busy schedules to join me today. And for those of you who will be watching this offline, I appreciate your time as well. Um, hopefully we won't get any more snow here soon, and finals week will be smooth for you guys next year. And I'm looking forward to working with you guys to get the pilot stood up in the spring. All right. Thanks so much, guys. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day and have a great weekend.